Hi everybody, this is Melissa Klein, and I am here to talk to you about a cool shading exercise, a little kind of a warm-up or appetizer. And I recently was asked, can I paint acrylic on top of paper? And I would say kind of a qualified yes. You can. You actually do not need to necessarily prime paper if you're painting in acrylic. A lot of times there's this process where if you're painting on canvas, you have your raw canvas and then you put gesso on it. And canvases are, basically cloth. This is not canvas, but it's ish. um, and but so you can paint directly on paper with acrylic, and you can mimic different effects with it. In fact, next class I'm going to be talking more about it, but I did want to quickly mention it. But I would say whether you're painting with acrylic or with watercolor, a good thing to do is to tape down the edges of your piece. And in this case, I'm just going right on my kitchen table, my trusty kitchen table. I have a whole story behind this table. It's pretty awesome. It's actually a family heirloom. But when I think about it, like my father wrote his book on this table. We had all kinds of family, turkey things on this table. And also I grew up doing both homework and art on this table, and now I continue to do that. But what I'm doing right now is obviously I'm taping the edges all around the paper so that it doesn't curl. Now you can use, let's say painting on your kitchen table is a problem because like you have a family and a life. I understand. You can tape this to like a board or, a masonite or even the back of a sketchbook, I guess. I mean, but anything that's a stable surface. Before I go any further, I wanted to mention this wonderful thing called watercolor blocks, and this is actually I forgot about that. This is from another class that I did about creativity. But this is essentially a stack of watercolor paper that has been glued, except for this one little section here, all the way around. And I absolutely adore watercolor blocks because they're highly portable and you could paint with acrylic without having to tape everything down. But I'm kind of saving this nicer paper for other projects. All right. So for today's exercise, yes, you will need masking tape. And I don't know, you're welcome to try other types of tape, like washi tape. I really have never messed with that. But what you're going to do is, once you have, secured your paper, however that may be, just going to go like this, like so, like that. This Tabitha Brown, I'm a fan of her stuff. She's a vegan cook. I'm not vegan, but she's cool. And I'm just trying to go all the way across and didn't quite make it. So there we go. And I'm just doing 3 of these. And straight across. So I'm trying to space them fairly roughly evenly, obviously, very roughly evenly. This is where the OCD in me wants to redo everything. I'm like, no, just because this is slightly, no, we're not doing that to you guys. No, not today. But I must do this leaky dinky. Do as I say, not as I do, okay? One of my favorite sayings is that if you can't be a good example, at least you can be a horrible warning. Shout out to any of my relatives, particularly my niece, about that. So hopefully I'm more than just a horrible warning. All right. Now, what you're going to do is you are going to, in 2 of these things, you're going to lay a gradient. And then you're going to go one way this way, one way that way. And you're going to, just wait till I do it. Okay. So pick any 2 colors that you so so desire. I would suggest going for a lighter color as well as a darker. You could also do this in pencil if you want to you know, torture yourself that way. I'm going to choose this sort of dark blue that I kind of adore. And it doesn't matter which direction you do. So this is about kind of, and now I kind of wish that I had done this on a board so I could tilt it a little bit and control the flow. But all I'm doing here is essentially the same thing as what we did with a pencil in lesson 1, where we just kind of laid a gradient, which is, you know, went from light to dark, dark to light. And I'm going to do that same thing over here. Not in love with this paper. Somebody gave it to me. Not that I, you know, not to, but hey, it's useful. And you can work on your gradient any way you so choose. This is what's making sense to me in this moment. Okay. Actually, I feel a little more satisfied with this one, but I need to stretch out the color a little. And I want to make them kind of pretty consistent, so I'm going to go over this a little bit. This is where things go like haywire and get smeary and stuff. But the main thing is, if that happens, like, just give it a minute. It'll dry out. And then you can go back over it. And I want this to be kind of a dark. Actually, I'm slightly disappointed. I wanted this to be a lot darker at this end. So I'm going to make it so. And as you can see, I got a little bit too wet there. Okay, so when that happens, we move on to something else, and then come back to it once it's dried a little bit. So for my other color, I'm going to go for the classic red. Just feeling it, you know. It's looking like an American flag. Okay, we'll stay away from subjects of patriotism at the moment. That's probably not a terribly happy subject. Ooh, here, this works way better. Do them both at the same time. There you go. Learn from my mistakes. That works way better. Oops. Until I did that. Then it got worse. Because all I'm trying to do is go from dark to light, from one end to the other. Okay. And if that happens, I'm going to show you a cool little cheat here. As my horse trainer says, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. Except if you're in a, in a relationship, that's not okay. Okay, not okay. We're human, but, let's try a little harder here. So, let's see. That'd be good. That would be an edgy Friday happy hour topic. Hey, anybody cheated? No, we don't need that. Well, some of you have some very interesting pasts, which is fabulous. Makes me jealous. Pretty wonderful. So I'm just working it. And then when I get towards where I want it to be lighter, I'm like, all right. And now I'm like, oh no, it's leaking. No. It's just an exercise, so this is a warm-up, so don't stress if you have everything go wrong. You'd be like, well, I'm doing better than Liz is, so. And here, I'm just going to try to pick up a little bit to get this even a tiny bit lighter. So I'm just wetting it with just water and using my trusty, handy, cheap paper towel. Because the good stuff is available these days. Hey, speaking of which, anybody got extra toilet paper? I went to place. I finally ran out of the... I had, just totally by coincidence, I had stocked up from Costco right before the pandemic hit, because my mother taught me, buy enough toilet paper in case an Armageddon hits, because you never know. And my God, Mom was right. And so I was totally, everybody was freaking out about it, and I was like, I'm fine. I usually kind of stock up. Well, and I went to buy it the other day, and out again. I'm like, wait, I thought we were all over this. I thought this was not a problem anymore. All right. So if anybody wants to meet me in the parking lot with a roll of toilet paper, no, we're not quite that bad yet, but oh my God. Never in my life I would have expected to be having that conversation, or that would be an issue as a privileged white American. Okay. Maybe we've been living here a little bit too privileged. So I'm going back into here where, see, as you can tell, it's dried out somewhat. And see where this is all like blotchy. I'm going to see what I can do. Maybe not, maybe yes, maybe no. Because the thing about it with paper is once it gets wet down and worked, it tends, you got to be kind of careful because it gets a little fragile. And so if I work this too much, it's just going to, kind of pill up and be terrible. So, like one of those cheap polyester shirts that you get that, like, they look kind of nice in the department store or whatever, and then after a few washes, it's like becomes this weird pill city thing. I will say this though about watercolor, and is that, and you can do this with acrylic. You could definitely do this. Just water your acrylic down, lots of water. And you don't even have to water your acrylic down. You could do this effect just with, let's say, mixing the red and a white, or the blue and a white. So that's also a totally valid option. So that's happening. I'm just trying to get it as even as possible. And then the next step is to let it dry. So that's in some ways the hardest thing. So in about 10 minutes or so, when it's dried out, or you can use a blow dryer if you're not very patient, then we'll go on to the next step. One little caveat here too, I'm using this sort of painter's blue tape. You don't want to leave it on too long because sometimes it will stick, or pull up the paper. Another thing that I forgot to do that I should have done though, and I will show you this really quick while that's once again like kind of drying out a little bit. It's still like trying to fade this out a little bit, and the red keeps wanting to come over to this side. I'm like, no, stop it. But you can take this tape and you can either on a sweatshirt or your jeans or something, and you can kind of tamp it down on onto your clothes. I usually use my jeans, but you don't want to see my leg up on the table, and neither do I. That will it'll pick up a little bit of the lint, and that will help to keep it from having too big a stick. All right, so thank you for watching, and hopefully this was semi-entertaining as I babble on about various things while trying to get this to be in two nice gradients. Yes, just got to do that a little bit, and we'll go from there.